The one thing that I was clear on is that I was beyond exhausted. I was working long hours and I would come home and crash. There were weekends when I would finish work on Friday afternoon and I didn't leave the house until Monday morning because I was just bone weary, tired. So the only thing I knew was that I needed rest.
What happens when you're climbing the ladder at the exact same time your body is telling you to stop? My guest today, Amy Palmer, faced that moment head on. A former senior executive who walked away from corporate without a backup plan, Amy discovered something unexpected on the other side, a life that actually fits. Amy created the concept of pre-tirement, that phase where you get to redesign everything before retirement arrives. When her video on the topic went viral, thousands of women shared their stories. She realized just how many of us are at that exact crossroads, exhausted, questioning, ready for something different. Today, we're talking about that leap, what pre-tirement means, and why redesigning your life is just as ambitious as climbing the ladder. So let me introduce you to our guest, Amy Palmer. Amy is a creator and host of Blueprint Breakers, a platform dedicated to amplifying voices of women over 45 who are defining what life can look like. Through her podcasts, content, and community work, she shares space for honest conversations about reinvention, freedom, and designing a life beyond the expected. A former senior executive, award-winning actress, which I definitely want to talk about, and lifetime content creator, she now lives a more flexible, experience-driven life rooted in connection, curiosity, and growth. She's deeply committed to building community among women, navigating midlife transitions, and often can be found hosting conversations, traveling, creating spaces where women feel seen, understood, and inspired to take the next step. Amy, welcome to the Leadership Story.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so happy that you're here. So a couple things. One is that Amy and I got connected through a mutual friend after my friend shared her YouTube channel. And in particular, there was a conversation about Gen X women that truly resonated with me. Plus, there were so many nuggets. I was like, I don't even know what to do with all these things she said. But before we even talk about that, what's this award-winning actress thing? Tell me all about it. I'm curious.
Well, that was one of my career paths. That's actually what I went to school for, was theater and acting. And so I did the whole struggling actress thing in my young 20s.
Yes.
And I traveled around and did regional theater in Orlando, Florida. I had two different roles. I was nominated twice for Best Actress. They used to do like these regional mini, it was almost like a mini Academy Awards kind of a thing. And I got Best Actress for the entire area. And so it's definitely, I miss those days. It was fun.
Nice. Fun fact, my secret passion was I wanted to be a backup singer. I didn't want to be in front. I just
Yes.
wanted to hold the notes in the back, but that didn't go too well. My mother was like, Lisa, you need a real job. But I digress.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I did that too.
Did
I was
you?
I was a backup singer for a heavy metal band.
Oh my goodness. I need pictures. I need to see.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Oh, we would be great at karaoke then. Yes. So before we even dive into that conversation that I heard from your YouTube channel, I really want to start with you and how it all started. Like, you decided to leave the corporate world back in 2022. And I can only imagine. Tell me about that and talk me through that decision. What was the moment that you knew you had to leave?
Oof. Well, I started to get inklings that I had to leave way before that. It was actually 2019. I started to get inklings that I was not feeling fulfilled. Something was just feeling out of alignment with me, professionally. And literally the pandemic sort of postponed any further thought along those lines. Primarily because, I was an executive for a network of private schools,
Okay.
and I was responsible for a big team, a lot of people, and I felt I was serving families and students and teachers, and so it was a time that, like, I felt my calling, like, I really needed to be where I was during that time.
Yeah.
And so I put off thinking about what I had been thinking before about leaving or doing anything else. I had to, like, get us through this crisis,
Mm-hmm.
at that
Yes.
time. What I'm not sure that I realized was I I wasn't fully healthy enough to be able to do that. Like, I performed the role, I did what I needed to do, but on the inside, it was getting worse and worse for me. My
Yeah.
health was getting worse, my mental health, my physical health. I was gaining weight, like, out of left field, and I was also going through all the stuff of menopause at the same
Yeah.
time, dealing with all the issues that were coming from the pandemic was really weighing heavy. So I got to the point probably in 2021 was when I was at a low, like, physically, mentally, emotionally, and I knew I have to do something differently, with my life. Even though I wasn't really sure what that was gonna be or what that was gonna look like, I just knew that with what I was doing, it was adding to this, like, restless, unhealthy feeling that I was having, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, that does. And my question, I guess my next question is really about, even though you knew you had to do that, what ultimately made you say, leave the corporate world? Because I think anyone, especially women, that would probably be the last thing we would do. We'd probably just try to push forward, even though
Mhm.
we are mentally and physically, we are shutting down. But I think we're taught to just work through it. I mean, that's the culture, particularly when it comes to being professional and being at the level probably where you were. I'm sure that was the last thing you thought even to do. What made you to
Right.
say, "I need to leave"?
Right. Well, I did at the time that I decided I needed to leave, I didn't also make the decision that I needed to leave corporate America. Like, I was not sure if it was the job, the industry, the environment.
Yeah,
I knew enough to know that I wasn't thinking crystal clearly about what was gonna be best for me next.
right, right.
What I knew, the one thing that I was clear on is that I was beyond exhausted. I mean, I was working long hours and I would come home and crash, and on the weekend, there were weekends when I would finish work on Friday afternoon and I didn't leave the house until Monday morning because I was just bone weary, tired.
Yeah.
So the only thing I knew was that I needed rest. Like, I needed to take a break. And so that's what I did. It wasn't until after I was able to take a break and sort of heal and get my energy back, get my clarity back, get quiet, like, really listen to my heart, my intuition. That's when it started to become more clear that jumping back in, even if it was a different company, even if it was my quote ideal job, I knew that that wasn't in alignment with what I wanted or needed next.
And during that time, what were the emotions through that whole time like? I'm sure there was probably sometimes being afraid, probably like, "Thank goodness I don't have to answer another email." What what
Yeah.
what was that time like?
Well, there's definitely some stress and anxiety because as overachieving women where we don't stop, when having a period of time where I did stop, even though I had given myself permission to not bring in any income for X amount of time. Like, I had in my mind, I had 3 months that I had given myself that I would be okay, and I had prepared for that
Yeah,
financially.
yeah.
So, like, I had created all of that. So, within the bubble of the 3 months, I was able to sort of stay calm. Coming out of the 3 months, there was definitely anxiety that would kick in. Like, what if what if I don't find something else? What if I don't figure this out? What if I go broke? What if I don't have any income? Like all the fears would come in. And I I think the thing that really kicked in for me, I'm not an overly religious person,
Hmm.
but I do consider myself spiritual, and I've been and that sort of ebbs and flows during my life. But during this particular time in my life, my faith just felt stronger than I had ever felt it before.
Yeah.
Giving myself that space and the quiet and the stillness to heal, I was able to sort of like hear this, like, I just had this inner conviction of this is the right thing to do. This is the right path to take. You're right. That path is not the right path for you to take. Like, I just kept getting reassurances, deep, deep down that this was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Not to say that the anxiety wouldn't kick in and things wouldn't
Yes.
happen, but I still would come back to that. And that helped me to, you know, one foot in front of the other, take the actions that I needed to take to make things happen.
Yeah. I love that because when you are so entrenched in what's going on, we don't take that time to breathe
Mhm.
and allow ourselves to think about the possibilities. We get caught again, we get caught up in the rat race, particularly it's more of an American thing than anything.
Mhm.
We tie ourselves and our identity so much to our careers to say that we are going to break away from that. You did it like I mean, yes, you prepared, but still consider that as like I am just going to stop. It can be daunting for anyone to take that on. What would you say for a person that's currently in that situation that is feeling like they need to move or break, but they're terrified? What are some of the things they can try to prepare themselves if they're ready to do something like that?
Right. Well, I do think that you do need to take some sort of rest. I mean, even there's so many people that I know that like never even take their PTO. They just let
Yes.
the PTO pile up and expire. And,
Yes.
I understand that not everybody can take a 3-month sabbatical or take a year. Like, I understand that. But the question is, what can you do? What kind of break can you take? For some women, it might be a day. Can you get a day
Yeah.
where you're not taking care of other people? They're not relying on you. You can have time and space and quiet to just clear out your brain, your heart, and get clear about what it is that you want to do. So the more you can find those opportunities to have that quiet time, and I mean like quiet, not even a let's watch Netflix all day.
Yes.
Which there's
Yes.
good times for
Yes.
that too. But I'm talking like really get still and sit with it. And then if you come to the conclusion that it's something longer that you need, something bigger that you need to find out what needs to happen to make that possible for you?
Right.
Who do you have in your life that can help and can support? What steps do you need to take? For me, when I was going through that and planning and figuring it out, I was living in my dream location of Laguna Beach, California. I had worked hard to get there. I'd always wanted to live there. And I knew I couldn't leave this job without something else backed up and afford to live where I was living
Right.
and afford to live how I was living. So I had, I packed up my stuff. I downsized. I got rid of most of my belongings. I became nomadic. I leaned on people who loved me
Yeah.
to help and support. So there were changes that I needed to make in order to give myself that time and space to really, heal and figure out what the next season was going to look like.
Yes, and saying that there is a mind shift that you have to do. Particularly,
Mhm.
there's a couple things as you said that I think can be daunting. One is actually sitting with yourself in quiet. We have a lot of distractions that help us not to do that. When you actually have to listen to yourself and listen to your doubts, your fears, magnified in the quiet space.
I believe people will be scared, but it's freeing. It's because once we deal with it and get it over with, how much freer do we feel
Mhm.
when we do that? And I think the second thing is that as particularly as women, we are known to take care of others.
Mhm.
We put ourselves last. And when it's time for us to take care of ourselves, we it's hard for us to be dependent on others, especially as
Yes.
very independent women. You get to a certain level in your career and a platform, whatever that may be, and having to rely on others because we say, "Oh, I can do this myself," and then actually have to depend on others. That can be
Yes.
frightening, but
Yes.
you're also missing that specialness that when people step up, or how much better you feel, like because people will show up. I'm not,
Mhm.
and it's probably not the people that you think. It's not the people that we think always shows up for us. It's those ones that you never knew that were looking up to you or just wanting to help. So I love that. I love that.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with you, Lisa, 1,000%. This was the first time in my life that I really openly asked for help and support from other people in my adult life, I should say.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
just uber independent, like to a fault. And it was also very healing to let people help
Yes.
and support. I mean, it was good. So you're spot on with that.
Nice. So from this experience, what has surprised you most about how your life is now as opposed to being in corporate world?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest changes and most difficult adjustments for me has been, and it's gonna sound a little cliche, but it is really being less focused on the destination, like I'm more focused on the journey and the process and the experience as opposed to the end goal. And in corporate America, you've got goals and targets and quotas, objectives and everything, and you're literally climbing a ladder.
Yes.
So it's all focused on the end result. And it took me a while to figure this out because even when I first started to try to figure out what was coming next and putting some things into place, I was still like waiting for the results. Like what's this going to end with? What's this going to give me? After a while, I started to realize I was enjoying what I was doing. I was in the messy middle, supposedly, when it comes to
Yes.
like building all these new things, but I was enjoying the messy middle. And
Yeah.
that's been very surprising to me.
So it's a little bit of both of that, letting go of some of that control.
Yes,
Also not defining yourself or measuring yourself to the normal standards of measurement from that we get from corporate.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And I've been able to be more authentically myself. And
Yes.
I don't I don't want to fully blame the corporate system. I have accountability in that too, but in terms of I was trained, conditioned, brought up to believe that in order to be successful in that system, this is the person you need to be. You need to be this
Mhm.
kind of person. You need to make your decisions in this way. You look at things from this perspective. And I didn't realize it when I was in it. I had really adopted and adapted all of those things to become that person. And that's part of what was killing me because it was so
Right.
different from who I like in my heart, who I wanted to be.
Right.
So there
Yeah.
was coming to terms with some of that as well.
Yeah. Because we are conditioned, especially in certain industries, that you have to be this one thing.
Hmm.
We always talk about separate your personal life from your business life,
Hmm.
and I don't know how true that is.
Hmm.
Especially when you spend so much time with people. It's hard. If I'm spending
Right.
sometimes I spend more time at work than I was with my family. So
Right.
so you have to have some kind of personal ability or some kind of connection. And
Hmm.
it can be very counterintuitive to who you are.
Hmm.
And you also have to protect yourself because even when you try to provide some vulnerability, first of all,
Hmm.
that's a nasty word in corporate, but
Yep.
when you try to be slightly vulnerable, you have to protect yourself because you can't be vulnerable to everyone else.
I think, and I found in my last couple of years in that role, I actively worked to try to tweak my approach. I really always considered myself people-centered, human-centered, and I wanted to live that more fully.
Yes.
And sometimes you get dinged for that. Like,
Yes.
and I was getting to the point where I didn't care if I was going to get dinged. I was going to
Right.
make the decision the way that I was going to make the decision, and it was a human-based decision. And, if I'm going to get dinged, I'm going to get dinged. But I
Yes.
probably wouldn't have been successful long term trying to do it
Yeah.
that way. But I think, again, I think that there's hope in corporate. Like, I think that it can change. And I think it's up to we women, really, to lead the charge there, because we've been spending these last couple decades as being one of the first generations to have the opportunity. We've been trying to do it like the men do, right? And approach it in the same way, where I think there's another way that we can do it. It's about creating companies around that.
Amy, that's like 10 more episodes we can do on that, just on that topic alone. And I'm here for it if you are.
There's a lot there.
It's a lot there, yes. I wanted to talk about the conversation that my colleague shared with me. She's my colleague slash best friend. You used to work with her, and it's so interesting because I did an episode about Gen X, Gen Z, and talking about being tired and just all the different things that are wrapped around shaping your career. And she sent me your episode about pre-tirement, which I want to talk about. So what is this concept of pre-tirement that you created that has resonated with a lot of women? How did
Yeah.
you come up with this concept, and how do you define that?
Right. Well, it was something that I had been thinking about for a while, after I had my sabbatical. And after my sabbatical, I still had to make a living. I still had to, find my fulfillment and pursue a life. I was not mentally, emotionally, or financially ready to retire yet. At the time that I left my job, I was 55. So I had a good 10 plus years before I was even of typical retirement age. So I wasn't ready to just stop. I had to keep working. I just wanted to change the way I did it. Like, I didn't want to generate income and pursue my goals in the same way that I had been for the last 2-3 decades. And it's been a lot of trial and error and figuring out what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And I started to talk about it with other women in terms of when they're extremely burnt out on the life that they are currently living. And a lot of it has to do with job, but it also has to do with the demands of other people in your life, family. There was just so many women who were so used to putting themselves last.
Yeah.
And then we're at this phase of our life where the only next marker that we have is that silly retirement number, whatever that is. And it seems so far away and so daunting. And that could be overwhelming and depressing. And
Yes.
and something clicked for me in the last couple years that we can do it a different way. We can build this period of our life in whatever way that we want to focus on finding joy, fulfillment, whatever our priorities or values are in life, making them more of a priority, not waiting till retirement. And we could do that and still generate an income at the same time. I knew that there were other women that were feeling a similar way. So I put out a video. Started to put out videos every single day talking about all kinds of topics. This particular topic, one day, I just put the name of pre-tirement on it because I just started, it's not retirement, it's pre-tirement. It's before, it's the last 10, 15 years before we are actually possibly retiring. And I just shared my experience and shared a lot of like what I've shared with you here today about what I was going through and how I was feeling, and shared a little of sort of the possibility and the solutions that I came up with,
Right.
and like the hope on the other side of it. And yeah, it really resonated with a lot of women, which I found it was validating, but it was also, it felt like a relief because, I knew that it was resonating, not just because a lot of people were watching the video, but thousands of women were commenting on the video and sharing their stories and sharing what they were going through. And then many of them were sharing how they've come out of it and what has been the answer for them and what kind of life. There was one that talked about she now works in a flower shop and how much joy that brings her, and
Yeah.
just all the different things that we were all sharing together. I realized that we really needed this community and the conversation. So
Yeah.
it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Like I said, when I heard it, I was like, I need to talk to Amy because I feel like I'm at that point. And let's be honest, we're in this time period where ageism is real,
Mm-hmm.
as well as being a woman and whatever salaries, titles that we try to get at this position. I am cognizant that when you reach a certain level, organizations may not want to keep you on.
Mm-hmm.
We have AI coming into the mix which allows them to hire more junior people in positions. So it's very interesting. And you're right. You're not at that point where you're ready. You can truly retire at the maximum level that you would like to. So I love this concept of pre-retirement. And again, it goes back to even when you were saying back to when you were burnt out and taking that pause and saying what is like what I want to do with the rest of my life.
Right.
What is this? What do I want to do for the rest of my life? Yeah. So I love that concept and taking that time and looking deeper and, really plotting out what that next stage will be. But going back,
Mhm.
a couple of things I wanted to talk about was two things. Has anyone responded negatively and how would you, how or push back and how would you respond to that?
Do you mean me personally when I took this shift? Did I get
No, just the concept
or
of the
putting it out
pre-retirement.
there? Luckily, it's been very much the minority in terms of
Yeah.
criticism and pushback. Been a massive amount of support and various interpretations of what I was talking about and how people are experience
Yeah.
it. Obviously, our experiences are all different, but the critics. I mean, there were definitely critics that were saying what you are saying is feeding into the ageist actions of corporate America. If they think that Gen X women are going to check out and aren't going to care anymore, you're adding into it,
Right.
which I found interesting that was their particular takeaway.
Yes.
And then I had definitely some very misogynistic comments as well.
Well, you'll always get those.
Yeah, I only had like a few men that commented on this video, and they were all extremely critical of it. So I found that we could have a whole other
Oh my
conversation.
goodness. Yeah. Yes.
But then I think when I look at it, I feel like some of the criticism, if you peel it back, it comes from fear and it comes
Yeah.
from guilt.
Yeah.
And the guilt also is kind of tied into fear as well, I think, because I experienced that too. I felt guilty about wanting to do things differently. I kept thinking of it as stepping back, winding down, and that all sounded like very like lazy, like it sounded
Yes.
unambitious. And so I felt really guilty about that because that's not who I am. And it wasn't until my mindset around it has just completely shifted in terms of it's not stepping back, it's not checking out. It's really just redesigning, it's a different approach, a different way to move forward. And in some ways I'm just as ambitious as I always was. It's just
Yeah.
I have different priorities and values that I'm focusing on.
Yeah. Where you're not focused on hitting targets and productivity. It's the balance of you are feeding passions that you probably didn't know you had or you kind of suppressed.
Mm-hmm.
and allowing them to blossom and put together new avenues that again were probably not even available at the time. So
Right. Right.
yeah.
Exactly.
Like who's this podcasting thing? I don't even know.
I know. I know. And that was the first thing that I was clear about. It was funny coming out of the sabbatical. My very first piece of clarity was, all right, I'm going to launch a podcast for women in midlife who have faced something similar. So that was like the first thing of clarity. I didn't know what that was going to mean or what else I was going to
Yes.
do, but that was the
Yeah.
first thing.
Now speaking of that, you call yourself the Gen X big sister.
Yes.
And I want to talk about the differences between Gen X, Gen Z, Gen
Mm-hmm.
Y, like how we look at the world because like we said before, Gen X was told that we could do it all and we often did that and by imitating men, but yet it seems like millennials and Gen Z have a completely different, relationship with work. What do you think is the most important thing that Gen Z is getting right that Gen X kind of missed?
Well, I think a lot of how I'm approaching professional life right now is very similar to how Gen Z does. I mean, Gen Z, and this is just, I'm generalizing, obviously,
Yeah.
but
Yes. Yes.
statistically speaking, and when you look at it, they're generally prioritize focused on a mission. They're looking for something that has meaning. They want to have impact. They want to be well rewarded for their work. They don't necessarily want it to be their life. They don't want it to define them. They want it to be part of their life. And they also know not to rely on any one job. They have multiple streams of income as
Yeah.
teenagers. They figure out different ways of having money coming in, so that no matter what happens with any like one job or one company, that's not the be all end all for them. And we weren't necessarily taught that way. And so that's not our first go to. And I think it's a healthier way to approach things, especially with the way like layoffs happen and you just don't know what's going to come. So I feel like that approach is very healthy.
Yeah. And just the fact when they were entering the workforce, particularly graduating college and right at COVID, it was also during the time of the great resignation where people were questioning
Yes.
their careers and their lives and work life balance. And they have really leaned into that. My youngest daughter, she keeps me in check all the time where she knows she wants a mission, but she also knows when I log off at 5 o'clock, I'm logging off at 5 o'clock. I'm not checking
Hmm.
any emails. The weekend is my weekend and they'll see
Yes.
me on Monday. And I did not have that concept.
No. Well, no, me neither. And I think that's the thing. I think they saw us. They saw what we were doing. They saw some of the mistakes we made. They take their PTO
Yes, yes.
almost as soon as they get it.
Yes. What do you think that we're learning things from Gen Z millennials? What do you think that they can learn from us? Or what do you think that we have done to allow them to think the way they are?
Do you think that they could, you mean what they haven't learned from us or what they
I
have
think
learned from us?
both, both, both.
They could learn a little bit from our stick to itness, like the fact
Yeah.
that the resilience of sticking with something even when we might not really want to do it, the sense of responsibility. Now, mind you, we took it to an unhealthy extreme. And so I
Yes.
think the pendulum is going too far the other way, where they're too quick to bail out on something. They're too quick to move on to the next thing. So I think that there could be like some healthy middle in there
Yeah.
as well. And I'm not sure what else they could.
Yeah. I do agree. I think we did swing the pendulum too far on certain things, particularly as women, because we were trying to prove ourselves. We were finally allowed at some of those tables that we weren't initially able to get to. I mean, we just got
Hmm.
we were finally able to get a credit card, what, 1973 without a man
Right.
signing for it. So we were trying to do all the things to improve our worth in the world. And the younger generation knows their worth earlier than we did also. But I do agree there are certain things try to stick to some things. You don't have to jump immediately. Sometimes you just have to learn, process, and learn from it and then move on. So, yeah, I agree.
But you make another good point that I think is important, that Gen X, I think we were a little better at it, but there was room for improvement. Gen X women. Because
Yeah,
I think as Gen X women, we were a little more aware of our recent history as women, and probably because it was the generation or two right before us.
right.
So we heard it right from their mouths about what it was, how it was before, and
Yeah,
what it, like the struggles and the fights that needed to happen to get us to where we were. And it feels like there's no longer a lot of respect for that. Like there's not necessarily a lot of understanding of this is recent, and it took a lot of hard work to even get to where
yeah.
we are.
Yeah, and I think they respect it or understand it later. It takes them a minute.
Uh-huh.
Because
Uh-huh.
even, my daughter says, "Now I understand what you went through." Or I'm like, "I was trying to tell you." I mean,
Yeah.
I was trying to tell you, but hey, if you had to get there when you had to get there, so
Right.
I appreciate that.
That's true. That's true.
Let's talk about what you're doing now. So
Uh-huh.
you've launched Blueprint Breakers. How has the act of creating content changed how you see yourself and what you're capable of?
Uh-huh. Uh, it's definitely been an amazing form of expression for myself, creatively and otherwise. And it's also been sort of my give back to the world, my give back to other women, my give back to younger generations as well. And I've explored different topics over the years. So my message has become probably more refined. When I launched Blueprint Breakers in late 2022, it was showcasing women over 45 living a life outside the traditional blueprint, but it was primarily women over 45 who were single and didn't have kids. Because I found that there were very few resources and few people really speaking to the nuances of our experience in
Agreed.
midlife, how it's like slightly different than quote
Yes.
the mainstream. And so it started there. And then as I started to have more guests on my podcast from all different areas of expertise, I started to realize that there were a lot more challenges that weren't being talked about by women, in our age group across the board.
Right.
And so my idea of living a life outside the traditional societal expectations became broader as I realized there were so many women that felt that way.
Yeah.
And so I've just felt more committed to my calling to sort of create community. I feel like there's a strong longing for community and connection amongst our generation, desire for friendship, for travel, like all of those things. And with what I've been doing, it allows me to explore different ideas, different concepts. Like I can be creative with it.
Yeah.
I'm meeting new people all the time, yourself included. So it's really broadened my horizons and has added so much joy and fulfillment to my life right
Yeah.
now. I talk about this as pre-tirement. This could extend into my quote
Yes.
retirement. Like I could
Yeah.
see myself doing this forever. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Because you've gotten back to yourself and
Uh-huh.
you are in control of this and it's bringing you so much joy. Why would you want to stop? And looking back now, if you'd have stayed in the corporate world, what do you think your path would have been? Do you think you
Mm,
would have just stayed the course, or do you think you would have gotten to this point, or
mm.
have you even given it some thought?
Well, about a year and a half after I left, I I was being actively recruited for a corporate executive role at a higher level than what I had done before. And
Hmm.
it was like on paper, it was everything that
Enticing.
I had supposedly been going for my whole career. And here it was. And this was, a contact in my network that knew me very well. And I had zero desire to go for it. I had zero desire to be in it. And which was also encouraging to me because it was tempting. Like there were a lot of things that were tempting about it. I finally would have achieved the pinnacle that I said I had set out for. I had finally would reach the financial point that I was like shooting for, all of that. But there was nothing in me that wanted to accept it and to move in that direction. I really feel like if I hadn't left, I feel like I would have had a physical breakdown of some sort. And just my body would have continued to revolt to a really bad level. So this was inevitable. I don't want to say, I mean, because I also hear from a lot of women who are in corporate, who are executives, managers, or whatever role they're in, who are loving what they do. They love their company. They feel great about it. You know, I'm thrilled for that. You know, I'm not trying to say that it's for nobody because we need women who are in there because if we're ever going to change it, we need to be there. I'm just saying that for me, that wasn't the place where I was going to be able to make the biggest impact any longer.
Yeah, and I think your overall story is just that we men and women, we have to listen to ourselves because our body, even if we try to forge through, our body is going to tell us no. You're going to hit that wall. You're going to start losing your hair, gaining weight. Your body will tell you this is not for you. And whether it's just the job that you're in that you need to change, the industry that you're in that you need to change, or it's just you- your the universe telling you need to slow down and do something different. I think
Right.
that's really the key. Regardless if you love something, it's like what
Right.
is that passion that's going to sustain you? And if it's
Yeah.
not sustaining you anymore, you have to reevaluate. And
That's
if
right.
you can't, like if you and even if you can't leave that corporate position, maybe there's things outside of that you can take on, like doing more volunteerism or, dedicating your life to some other things outside of the workplace. But it's that the key is that we have to listen to ourselves because ourselves will tell us, I don't want to be the one that has a heart attack because I didn't listen
That's
to
right.
was
Yeah.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Lisa, you're right. Cause I also hear from women who are saying, yeah, I feel exactly how you feel. I cannot leave my job.
Yes.
I
Yes.
cannot,
Right.
which
Yes.
I understand. I mean, it was a luxury, like it was a luxury and a privilege that I was able to create a situation where I could leave my job. I understand that there are people who can't. My thoughts for a situation like that is, all right, so let's just peel back the Gen X conditioning then.
Yes.
Let's take that screen off and how can we approach this job differently in a healthier way? Can we stop making it our end all be all? Can we clock out at 5 o'clock?
Yes.
Can we focus on the parts of our job? Because towards the end, when I was not in the best of place, I focused on the areas of my job that I did still enjoy. Like I loved working directly with team members, coaching and developing them and talking about like professional development, stuff like that. So I focused on the pieces of my job that I loved.
Yeah.
So if you're stuck, quote, stuck in your situation, looking at, okay, so how can we redesign my approach to this job so that it's a healthier fit?
Yes. And please take your PTO.
Yes, please. Yes. Yes. And not to go do something productive.
Yes. Because we do that.
I know.
Like,
We do.
then what was the point? Like, did I have vacation?
Right.
Yes. Take your PT. Go to the spa. Get your nails done. Something that's not those things.
Yeah.
So, and no food shopping. That's the other thing.
Right.
Okay, I digress. All right.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
So Amy, I'm going to end on my signature question, and the question I have for you is, what is the one word that you would use to describe your leadership story? And
Yeah, I heard you ask this question of all your guests. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to go? And so when I sat with it, I had several words that come to mind, but the one that I landed on was expansive. From the standpoint of I spent my career trying to rise, trying to climb a ladder, when really what I wanted to do was just sort of expand and fill out the space more. Like, I really just wanted to become more of who I really am. And so that's why I landed on the word expansive.
I love that. I tell
Thank
you,
you.
everyone needs a bumper sticker, a T-shirt
I know.
with their word
With
on
the
it. I
word.
love it.
Yes.
Yes, you
Yes.
need. Somebody get some T-shirts going. You
Mm-hmm.
need to trademark
Mm-hmm.
that and put it on a T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
So, Amy, thank you so much for being on the show. I truly loved our discussion. How can people connect with you?
You can find me on Instagram at amypalmer.today. You can find all the things about me at amypalmer.bio. You'll find the link to my YouTube channel there as well. I would love to see you there as your Gen X big sister.
Love it. And I will put everything in the show notes for everyone to connect with you. Amy, thank you so much for being on the show. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you, Lisa.
I love how Amy landed on the word expansive to describe her leadership story, because that's what it's all about. Not stepping back, but expanding into who you really are. For many of us, ambition has always meant climbing. What if ambition could mean redesigning? If you're exhausted from performing a version of yourself that no longer fits, you're not lazy, you're finally listening. Connect with Amy at amypalmer.today on Instagram or the Blueprint Breakers podcast, available on all platforms. And subscribe to the Leadership Story on Substack for more conversations with women who are defining leadership on their own terms. I'm Lisa Jones, helping you discover the leadership story you were meant to tell.